Yep. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Q&A&Critique number 88. It is currently 2010 UTC. We are 5 minutes early here in the Beeple Artist community. And today we have a special guest, Rodrigo Gomes, which I have just recently had the honor of meeting. And with that, got to know a bit about his start of his career in the publicity and animation industry of Brazil. So this is an exciting chapter for me because Brazil is very close to home, and I would love to share what the industry is like there and a bit of here, and we're going to talk about that later on today. And also, at the latter half, as always, we'll be going to do an art review with the art from the community in the finished art section of the Discord server. So stick around and stay in tune. And also, a pre-notice. Beeple Artist 3.5.1 is cooking with new features from Blender 3.5.1, which includes 50 fixes and a number of other things. So stick around, and I hope you enjoy today. So without further ado, let's begin with Rodrigo. How are you today?
Hello, Dres. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very surprised that you invited me. I'm very happy about that. Thank you.
Oh, the honor's mine. I actually had a look at your portfolio, and I remember you submitting this earlier this week to share your portfolio, and I wanted to take a closer look at it with you. So could you tell me a little bit about
Yeah,
yourself? What do you do these days?
of course. Well, at the moment, I'm looking for a job. I'm not currently working on any studio. I'm freelancing, and yeah, in my experience, I have worked in a few places here in Brazil, in São Paulo, which is like the best city to work on the on animation here in Brazil, because it's very concentrated. You know, all the studios here in São Paulo. This city is where you get the most like amount of studios here. You know, so if you want to work here, like uh not over the internet, this is where you want to be, you know. So I had the pleasure to work in a few places here in my career, which by the way is not very long. Just let me open with that.
That's okay.
um yeah, I started in 2019 here, got my first job, and I was able to work in some studios here in Brazil.
That's really nice. Well, you've done quite a bit of work over the past 3 years, almost 3, 4 years. So you've managed to go through a number of different
Yeah.
studios, a number of different jobs, working with different types of publicity. There's one particular job that I really liked was your texturing work for a number of characters where you mentioned you did over 100 different character textures. Couldn't believe
Yeah,
it.
throughout like 6 months. Yeah, just every day characters and characters and characters.
I also noticed you've done some pretty nice architectural renderings, also product showcases and things like this. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I just love those. I love architectural renders. I love it.
And some of your character design is also quite nice and cute.
Thank you, thank you. But just let me give credit here. It's from I followed a concept art by a very talented artist called Sierra. In the description, there's a original art for her work. He, so I basically transformed this into 3D.
Which is a feat in itself. I'm quite impressed.
Yeah, her art is very cute. And you know, people just loved seeing this one in 3D. I was excited about how people liked the Bulbasaur right there.
Yeah, it is true. I made a character this week as well. So your
Oh yeah,
quality
can I
renders
see
is
it?
good.
Oh, thank
Maybe
you,
later.
thank you.
So
No, that's fine.
that's okay. Well, I also wanted to ask, so you said you mentioned you started in 2019. What was it like starting out?
Yeah.
Where did you begin?
Yeah, so basically, I started learning Blender back in 2011, like a long time ago. but it was always something that I didn't do it expecting a job out of it, especially because since back then I would always uh, try to get to know where can I make courses, or is there like a college for that and everything. And honestly, there wasn't many places that offered this kind of courses, you know what I mean? So and the few places that where you could do that I knew of back then were paid and very expensive. So it didn't even cross my mind that it's an possibility that I could make money out of this, So I was always I always faced 3D thinking like it's a very cool thing, but I'm going to study programming because I'll do 3D because I love it, and then I'll make money programming on something like this, because then I had friends that were programmers and everything, but never as a job. Only after I went into this big city here in São Paulo that I started. Well, when I was in college, it was way later. I started in 2012 learning it, and then only in 2017, 2018, I started learning that. Okay, so I can see here in my city there are people who are actually working on 3D, and I can actually do it. So that's what I did. I dropped out of college in the middle of it. I mean, I was almost finishing it, and then I just dropped it because I started getting some freelance jobs. Very small roles for small work that just I was very excited that I could see, okay, I'm actually making money with this. So like as soon as I saw that I was making money with it, I just dropped the college and say, no, I'm not going to programming. Like I made $40 on a job here. Took a week to do it, but like, look, this $40 is, that's the proof. I don't need to be a programmer. I can actually do 3D. And then in 2019, I actually managed to get my first job in an agency here in São Paulo that they were doing animation, like 3D animations, and that was my first job. And since then, I've worked in other couple of places. Half of them, like two of them, in person, and two of them on over the internet, like home office, right? And this is where I am right now. I was freelancing over the last year or so, but now I'm really missing working with other people. I thought I would be happier working by myself, and it is quite good, but I'm starting to miss like the sitting down with other people and working with them.
Yeah,
It's also
understand
very
that.
lonely. It's very lonely, to
Yes,
work
lately
on home.
I've been freelancing with people for many years now, about 7 years possibly, and got my own studio, got my own work. But during the quarantine, Discord changed my life. I actually work a lot with some close friends of mine here on the internet, and we share these virtual spaces as if we're in the same studio. But lately, I've been taking a look at maybe opportunities of working in other studios. We'll see. We will see where life will
Yeah,
take me.
yeah, I can understand that. Yes.
I do have to admit, I was talking with my girlfriend about that the other day. It's like sometimes there is an aspect where you can earn people's trust when you look them into the face and ask them for a favor. It's a bit easier to work with somebody when you can confront them eye to eye instead of writing a message. A message can be ignored, but not when somebody's looking straight into the eye.
Exactly. You talk to someone and they can just look at it, not respond.
I guess so.
Not take it serious, right? There's also like, I don't know. I guess everybody does that. I don't know. I, you start having some rituals, like, okay, I need to take a bath and put a little bit of a, it's still a cloth working from home, but like a little better cloth, or a pants or something like this, so I can feel
Yeah.
like I started working.
You need a
Otherwise my
ritual.
brain just go, yeah, otherwise it's like my bed is over here, all I need to do is like, it's very tempting.
Yes. Just lie down and not do any work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow,
Yeah.
this job. Oh, I love it. I love this job because who I worked with. That's amazing. I love the guy I worked with.
Cool. Can you tell me more about this job?
Yeah.
This job.
Yeah. So, by the way, guys, just letting you know, this is not supposed to make my portfolio political. Okay. It's just I'm here for the artwork. Okay, because this is like a campaign against guns. And my involvement is that a friend of mine asked for help, and I just love working with him, so I accepted. So let me tell you about this one. At my first job, I made friends with a guy that is called Guilherme Duarte, and he's very good. By the way, can I ask you to visit a link? Is that okay?
Yeah, send the
Like,
link over and I'll put it to the socials, no problem.
oh, sorry. Okay. So I'm gonna show you what he's up to now. Imago Studio. Okay. So basically, this guy that I worked with is an art director in my first job, and I kept talking to him even after we stopped working together. This is the link. Just let me show you his work. So here in Brazil, we have some really like good artists, and we stopped working at this first job that I had. I moved on from it. He also moved on from it, and sometimes he needs help with some of his projects. So like 3 of the projects that I have on my portfolio, I worked for him. His name is Guilherme Duarte, and he's an art director, and he's flying, man. He's just he's going very well in his studio.
I love his work.
Yeah, do you like it? So do you see the guns right there?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, he also posted the one with the gas station. Is also, I worked for him. So let me tell what I did in this one. He made all the look dev, and I modeled the guns. So the guns, I did it, and then he put color on it.
Nice. So you did the modeling. Nice.
Yeah, I modeled the gun. And by the way, it was this gun was really hard because I tried to make it subdivisable, like with the loop cuts and subdivision surface. It was really, really a pain to do it. But I'm seeing sort of a trend, and when I say that, like, don't take my word for it. This is just what I see in my little bubble here in São Paulo. I'm starting to see a trend when there's artists that they stand out and they reach a certain point in the studio. That's obviously not my case, but it's his case. I started to see that they open up, they create a brand, make a website, call themselves, a studio, get 3-4 good friends of them, and just started doing freelance for all sorts of many countries around the world, and the productivity is just amazing, because like the quality of those works, I don't know. I don't see it being like inferior to a big studio. You know what I mean? Because back then when he was working there, I remember he would take care of it direct and everything. So he's obviously capable of having a website, start doing his own thing, and having his friends work with them. And I see like a good amount of people doing that. I also have a friend called Felipe Ferreira, and he has got a studio that is called Bench Park Studio, and he's also flying, man, doing jobs for last one I saw was an advertisement for Fall Guys, where he makes like a video animation in Maya, and those guys are really making the big studios like run for their money, like
That's good.
work for it. Yeah, I'm seeing this, bro. Like they are really starting to just doing their own websites, calling themselves, this is my studio, and getting they're starting getting big clients, man. I myself saw him working for, let's see, Fini. There's a Stella. I don't know if you have this in your country, but it's like some big brands. Tiger. It's a brand for beer, and yeah, they're doing great.
That's good. So when you work in these concerts with Brazil, like the general trend is that a lot of artists get their skills up, get their practice up with international clients, and they start creating alliances or teams, and they're working a lot of outsourced work overseas and international clients. But when you're in Brazil, where does a client typically come from?
Yeah. Well, okay. So there's like big jobs and small jobs. In my level, I I don't present myself like as big as those guys are. So I feel like when you are a freelancer here in Brazil and you don't work for an actual like animation studio here in São Paulo, the way you work for those big companies, like you see, I have like a Mercedes, Nivea, Petrobras. It's like some really big companies. I get to work on those kind of jobs because I'm inside an animation studio here in Brazil. And here in São Paulo, we have very good talent and very good studios that they get sorts of clients. So I think the way you get big clients like this is you either are working on an animation studio, then all those big guys, the studio gets those clients and just throw the the work at you, and then you like solve everything, and that's how I get to have some big companies in my portfolio. And the other way to get big clients I see is, if you're at the level of those guys that I showed you, they just have a good enough portfolio for that, because they've been like art directing in a studio here in São Paulo for a long time, and they start doing their own thing. But other than the big clients, there's a lot of work that you can do. Just well, the way I go about it when I want to freelance for like smaller jobs, I just go over on Upwork. That's where I meet people. Most of the work comes after you meet the client, because if you manage to like get in the all of those bubbles of people that want job, you can start just getting referred.
Yeah.
But like the first contact ever is from Upwork. Upwork and those sorts of websites. I think if you're not in United States or some country, like this, you're like a foreigner. You're outside of where everything is going on. You can make your first contact on Upwork, and then you start meeting people there. Because for example, you get a job on e-commerce. Like this is a job that I made for e-commerce. There's some they all know each other, right? If they don't know it directly, they know somebody who knows other people, and then you just start getting job. But the first step is just to uh, get in contact with people of other nationalities. Like this is the first step, right?
That is the first step,
And
is
then
connecting with the
and then,
overseas.
yeah, that's how you get the first step. If you want to get it by yourself. But the other way, which is what I like most, is just going to a studio. I really miss it. Yeah, I started. By the way, the way I met your server was because I was talking to my friend, the I'm kind of drunk guy, and I was talking about how I just miss being there with other people. Just, oh, I don't know how to do something. I was gonna stand up and bother them like, hey bro, can you help me? And then he said, oh, I know this server, and he talked very well about the server. Said you guys
That's
was
nice.
really cool. Yeah, so I just started. I'm just gonna start looking for jobs again.
That's good. I
On
hope you can
the
find a
on
good
the
one
area.
and get back into it.
Yes.
It's fascinating. It's curious to see
Well,
because your industry, like the way it seems like the way things work is very similar to how things work here. Often,
Is it?
yeah, here in Bogota in Colombia, we have a similar like model where studios either there are artists who work on their own, like a lone wolf, and they kind of make their contacts on the internet, and then they get the clients online, or they make clients with like bigger clients with like the petroleum companies or other companies here in the country. And they also work with the concept of like passing on projects from one person to another on commission based or with a publicity agency, or some animation studios they grow up and they start hiring other people and they work as a team with outsourced projects from overseas. Like is
Mm,
a unlike Brazil, Colombia has a problem where Bogota is the international center of the animation industry, but it is not the animation center. The animation center is in another city, which is the next largest city, which is a good 14-hour drive away or 1 hour
wow.
flight.
Yeah,
And
that's far.
they don't collaborate a lot. So it's a little bit of a competitive streak between the two cities when it comes to animation and where the contracts and the bidding go. But animation has really
Yeah.
boomed in the other city that I'm not. But But at the
Yeah.
same time, there's a lot of good productions and new television series and cinemas starting to happen also here in this city. Just recently, one went out to cinema and got even nominated in the Annecy Animation
Wow.
Festival.
Do do you feel like the pandemic is kind of helped people that are not exactly in the right city to work there? Because I feel like when the pandemic started, I just saw a lot of people hiring from everywhere, you know?
I think it did help
Like,
everyone. It helped me, that's for
yeah.
sure. If there is no evidence, it did
Did it?
help me. It did.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, it helped me a
What?
lot.
Because like working from home? What are you saying?
Yeah, because before the pandemic, I had difficulty finding clients in international clients. I had difficulty understanding my own worth as an artist and my skill set. I had difficulty knowing what I was doing. So
Mm,
once the pandemic started, I actually learned about Discord and I actually started making friends because everybody was on Discord. Everybody was on the internet. A lot of people that I met and some good friends that I still hang out with today. Uh,
yeah.
I met them and they started getting me in touch with reality, with how things are in the North Continent or how things are in Europe, different things like this, and it gave me perspective and also an edge or an angle to start connecting with international clients. It changed my life
Yeah. Connecting. This is the word, right?
because it's about
Yeah.
it's the people you know really. It's an
Yeah.
unfortunate truth about freelancing, but if you don't know anybody, you're not gonna find good work.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what you do, right?
A portfolio
Yeah.
does help though, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I gotta tell you, after I got my first job, my portfolio improved just a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. Like it was a really uh, changer to work on it. Like just my first job, just to have somebody sit you and tell how they do things is just so much better than, at least for me, it was so much better than doing things on my own.
That's true.
There's also some information. Yeah, there's also some information that I didn't know about, like how they do things. For example, I would use Blender, right? And then I used to make modeling, some renders, but it wasn't that great. It was really not that great. Uh, and then on my first job, like for some reason, you can get somebody who isn't very good at 3D, and just by having somebody who knows what they're doing just to overlook what you're doing, this person can do things similar to the experienced one can do,
That's true.
just
Some peer
because.
review.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And they don't even need to be that close. They don't even need to spend much time, but just by being in the same environment, like I'll give you an example. Like I used to work only in Blender, and then in my first studio here in São Paulo, I would work with Maya, right? And I learned a way that they did things that I didn't know. Like they did things like this, like this is how they do the modeling. This is how we like to do the UVs. This is like how to do things. For example, I'm saying that, but don't take it as like a true fact. Maybe that's just how the studios that I knew would do this, but they taught me that they like to do a different kind of modeling than what I did. Because since I worked in Blender, I would always stack a lot of modifiers, do a lot of things that are Blender related, and then I learned from them to do some other kind of modeling, some modeling that is more of a to work with subdivision, non-overlapping UVs. So the next guy who's doing the look development can just throw it at Substance Painter and everything's gonna work. Um, so in pretty much all of the studios that I worked here in Brazil, their workflow was kind of similar in that way. Maybe it's because we got a lot of different people that come from other software backgrounds or something like this, and they just want a kind of modeling that will just work on other software. Because imagine like this, right? I worked for Blender before professionally for like 7-8 years or something like this, and I'm used to stack modifiers and do bevels and warps and whatever. um I it's hard to kind of export that to Maya, right? And when you're changing softwares, you kind of want to do something that you're gonna be able to work in your software and export it to Maya because you don't know it yet. You know what I'm saying, right? They would always tell me like, I don't care if you do it in Blender, just the final version you send it here, right? But in order to do that, this kind of modeling was like, I learned a way of doing this that was like subdivisable, you know what I mean, like sustained, right?
Mm.
This is the sort of modeling that I learned to do there, and this is kind of what I do most, you know
That's good. That's good to know. Yeah, I was talking with a friend
yeah.
about this the other day about interpolability of transferring data from one software to another. You have to understand how
Mhm.
to export something and how to import it again, how to have the settings preserve what you're supposed to do, how to have the correct topology so that if someone starts to subdivide it in another software, it should work out okay. How things should, the
Yeah,
UVs be compatible between different types of machinery and things like that. That's interesting. We
yeah.
should.
I'm gonna tell you, like, I'm sorry, didn't want me to interrupt you.
No, you can go ahead. I
oh
was
oh,
about to ask
oh
you, like, so how did you handle this
uh,
learning experience? Did you have to hit walls? What did you do to figure out the workflow?
Look, so let me tell you that I've been two instances where I had to learn a new software. In my first job, I had to learn it Maya in person, and the other time I need to learn a new software was that I needed to learn 3ds Max in another studio, but that was online. So like, I think that the first job where I had to learn a new software was way easier because I was there, present. So, and it was so much easier to get help, because like, look, imagine like you're in a Discord server and
Hmm.
then you have to like learn a new software, right? And the second time that I need to learn a new software while working online, like it's kind of weird because you know that everybody's working, you don't want to ping them, and to solve like a small problem, you have to send a lot of messages. And it just, even the simplest thing, I feel like I'm taking too much time from them. It's just something that I like personally felt really uncomfortable for, but in both of them, at least they didn't care much that I worked in Blender. You know what I mean? Like, but anyways, just let's say just the main difference was that the first job I need to learn a new software in person was way easier because I could just sit, like they put me to sit down next to the person that was overseeing what I was doing. So that was very easy, you know. Like I didn't feel like I was bothering too much, you know. Some simple thing don't sound like like it's gonna take too much time. When you're in person, you solve things faster, right? Like over the internet, I feel like even the smallest problem, you have to send a lot of text or
Yeah.
maybe call, you know, you kind of bother them, right? But they were all the places that I worked were really nice about me coming from Blender. Like they really did not care, you know, because like they would always say like, that's fine, don't worry. Okay, so you gotta study, okay, study the software, but you can work on Blender fine. And by the way, the first, I don't know, 4 months working on my first job, I would only do it in Blender, just learning a little bit of what I should learn, but mostly modeling in Blender and just learning how to export to there, you know. But then comes the issue, right? That yeah, in order to do that, I need to do that sort of modeling that would work there, which is like subdivisable, just works with subdivision, like Camel Clark, you know. That like that was the main thing. Just make it work with Camel Clark, like no booleans and things like that.
No live
But yeah,
modifiers, no tessellated
yeah,
meshes. Okay.
yeah, yeah, I don't know. It might be just something that happened to me. Okay, don't take it as like this is the way to do it. But in my experience, they always expected that every modeling that went to the look dev team was subdivisable, so they could just throw on Substance Painter, you know,
Make it
like
work.
yeah, they were kind of expecting that, but they really didn't care, you know. I could just make it in Blender and just send it over there, and they were fine with it, you know. And then I did a lot of work. Then I started modeling. Then I went to look dev, which was a I just need to like learn how to send scenes for the render farm, you know. So I spend like okay, so in my first job I stayed on the studio for 1 year. In the first 6 months I would do all of those characters that you liked, by the way, thank you.
Yeah, those are
And
great.
then yeah, so the first month I did all the textures for those characters, and in the second half of the year that I worked there, I was on rendering, which um I mean, it was cool. I appreciate, right? But it just was a little boring because I spent 6 months rendering everything that was done. You know, so imagine that I spent 6 months opening like looking at a spreadsheet, seeing like which were the shots of that TV series right there that were finished, and then I would open the file, set it up, make sure there's the correct resolution, like the sample count is on the lowest possible with no flickering, you know, test 5 frames just to see it's not flickering,
Mm-hmm.
set the folder path destination very correctly, and then send it over the render farm, you know. So it was very repetitive, and it
Yes.
was very yeah, very and it was very stressing, you know. Like it was stressing because if you do it wrong, like the company kind of wastes money right, because you send it over the render farm, uh and then you have to send it again, like spends money. So it was very stressing. But yeah, and then I kind of happened that way. I present myself as a generalist, but it happened that in most of the jobs that I made, they put me on look development, which is
Interesting.
like I just yeah I was taking there. So yeah, basically by look development, they put me in texturing and rendering stuff, you know, especially rendering stuff. Here in Brazil, we do a lot of advertisements. Like most of the jobs that come in are from products, you know. Uh, like hardly ever a studio gets to. That's changing, by the way. But I feel like from what I see, okay, I might be wrong, but from what I see, studios here in Brazil, they get really excited and proud of being able to make animations. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because that's not the kind of work that comes frequently, right?
that's true. Yeah, it's a similar thing here. Like the pinnacle of somebody, studio here, is getting into animation and
The-
outsourcing to somebody like
Yeah,
Disney or
the
Nickelodeon or others. Or
the
even
owners get
creating your own
happy.
short film. Yeah, even just creating a short film and getting it shown in the local cinema or in the South American industry or even a large film. Everyone gets very proud about this because everybody does publicity. Everyone.
Yeah, and then the owners get proud, and then they show to everybody, and that's very cool. I like seeing like the things work out from them, but that's some like achievement, you know. Like our studio is now making animations for a TV, and look, now it's on Nickelodeon. Yes, like you said, now it's on Disney Channel, you
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
and they get really
It's the next
yes.
level of the local industry. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. By the way, the interesting thing about that TV series about the girls, I like. There's a downside. Okay, I'm not complaining, but um, something that was a little bit not as exciting as it could be is because we were kind of remaking that series. You know what I mean? Because look, in the seasons 1 and 2 of the cartoon, it was made by one studio here in São Paulo, but for some reason they stopped working together, right? And because of contract, they like the creators didn't have the rights for the assets. So my studio had to watch the previous seasons and uh, remodel all the characters and all the scenes again. So like it. The only thing that was bad about it is that there wasn't much creative side to it because we had to be very loyal to it needed to be to a point where you didn't tell the difference that those are other project files and other everything you know so it was very good to learn how to paint. I learned a lot because there's like okay, you needed to paint it that way just to look exactly it kind of helped me develop an eye for that, but it was a little bit repetitive just because we had to make sure it was exactly like the previous season, you know.
It's an interesting one. I also had a client like this here locally where they created a pilot trailer for a short, a series or a movie. And one studio worked on it as well, and they did a relatively okay job. And I knew the animator who did it too as well. I had worked with him before also. But the client who owned the original intellectual property of the project approached me and said, "Hey, could you re-render this?" I was like, "What?" "Yeah, could you re-render it?" And I was like, "Okay, sure." So I had the job and I had to rebuild the rigs, rebuild the textures, migrate the project
Wow.
to a newer version of Blender. And I even had to, some of the animations did not migrate correctly, so I had to redo the animations and re-render
Wow.
everything. And that was the
and,
job.
and it's difficult, right?
Yeah,
Because
it's
it
a lot
needs to
harder than
be
you think.
exactly. I can imagine, bro, because like sometimes look, this character's leg is very good, it's correct, it looks good, but it's not like the one that it's not like the what you need to follow, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
tricky. It's not creation. So I guess this is why a lot of the our friends and peers who work here, they get very happy when they start working on original content for other clients, international
Yes.
clients.
Yes, yeah.
Which leads me to a
Well,
question actually. I do have another question for you about this is
please.
I wanted to see when it comes to working for like either in freelancing or with your studio, do you think there's a difference between local clients from there in Brazil within the industry there and international clients? Is there a distinction?
Yeah.
And if so, what is
Uh,
this distinction? How are they different?
yeah. Uh, Okay, in my experience, all the really big clients here in Brazil that I managed to work with big clients were through a studio, and they all had a local it was localized like an agency here in Brazil, you know. For example, do you see the stoves right there? Those are from Whirlpool, for example. Do you see? Do you know this brand, Whirlpool? It's
Yes, I
for
do.
like stoves. Yeah, here in Brazil they have uh two child brands. I don't know how you say it, which is called Console and Brastemp. I don't figure you have this in your country, do you?
No.
Yeah, so those are basically like a sub brand from them. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it's the mother brand is Whirlpool. So because of the small brands, it's very localized. So even when I was working on a studio, uh, the agencies that would hire, like the publicity agencies that would hire our animation studios, were all Brazilians. You know, so it's not like we get. It's not like I would get many things in English and everything. It was in this occasion, like in this working on a Brazilian company, it was just like working for a local company, right? So the only experience that I really have working with uh, foreign clients is when I freelance to myself, and then the differences are yeah, the differences are big. Okay, just let me situate myself to the whole experience that you can have. Okay, uh I have some friends that actually work from bigger companies, which is like the portfolio that I sent, right?
Mm-hmm.
They might have a different experience because they are at a certain point that they actually talk to those big guys right there, right? Yeah, but myself, I am in a place where I'm working for e-commerce people, you know, like somebody who has a brand and has an Amazon listing for a product that is selling a lot, and they want to expand, they want to have some video made for them. So when I work on that, I talk to people that aren't big brands, you know. So all I know about working with people from other countries is those kinds of job. I'm not talking bad about it because they're small. Just to give a reference of what I'm talking about. Okay,
Yeah.
so when I work with them, they're usually uh they're usually like a successful e-commerce business owner. They're not like, it's not like I talk to a representative of a big company or whatever. So it's very personal, right?
Mm.
And the differences is mainly, well, they have a okay they have a hard time understanding our currency, you know what I mean, like the
Right.
difference between currency. Yeah, because in your country, I would imagine you don't use US dollars, do you?
No, we work with the Colombian peso, which is kind of like almost 5 to 1.
So Brazil is also 5 to 1. Yes, and so I think you're gonna feel what I'm saying. They have a difficult understanding that, you know. Sometimes from clients that, you know, I hear a misunderstanding of like, oh, but you know, in your country you make so little money, like this is a lot of money for you, and stuff like that. But they don't quite understand it, right? Right? Because like they're usually expecting to pay like much less than they would pay in US dollars, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah,
And then I
just
have
by
to
the
kind of
concept of inflation, but at the same time, the cost of
exa-
living may be only half of what they are paying.
bro,
So,
I was like, I didn't quite yeah, it's not that I didn't prepare, but the little preparing that I did, I was thinking about what I was gonna say, and that's exactly what I was gonna say. Exactly, you touched on a perfect point, bro. It's like our currency is 5 to 1, but food is only half as expensive. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
it's not quite the thing that it looks like. For example, electronics is more expensive than in the US. So
Yes.
how is
I've
it in
just
your
yeah,
country?
it's the same as well. Like taxes on
Is it
electronics
the
is
same?
20% more. I just purchased a new computer earlier this year, which cost me an arm and a leg and a kidney.
Yeah.
Um, but I was debating if I would get it from the United States, shipped in somebody's suitcase. But the parts are very big, very heavy, and I don't know who to trust to travel with that kind of delicate hardware. So in the
Because
end, I
it can't
purchased
be
it
taxed, right,
locally.
Drace?
Yeah. Say that again.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I said it because it can't be taxed, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's like game over. It's too much, right?
Yeah, so in the end, my parts were more or less 20% more than buying it in the United States. But with inflation, with the local currency and work like the work that I do, and also the expectation of international clients sometimes,
What?
or even local clients, they don't want to pay a lot. Well, it cost me it cost a lot working really hard day and night to try and get this computer for many years. But I got a little bit lucky, which was nice, with a client that actually paid an international rate. With that, I was like, okay, cool, that's great. But I
Yeah.
understand that struggle.
How would it be if you were to buy in your country from your market electronics
So, for
from with your
example,
currency?
like if I want to buy a
Is it
computer
hard?
hard drive, just add 20% more to than what you would buy on Amazon, for example,
Really?
or Best Buy or something. Buy a hard drive in Best Buy for such and such a price, add 20%, that's how much it would cost, but in the Colombian peso.
Like if you convert your money, it's 20% more expensive.
Yeah.
You
Well,
convert it,
no,
you fix for conversion, and then yet it's 20% more. Yes.
exactly. So like the dollars converted to
Yeah.
pesos, same price, plus 20%. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, well, that's yeah, exactly. So they don't understand that here in Brazil. I don't know. It might be even worse, Dre's, because I was like, okay, it's like this. Like it's like okay, my currency is 125 to North America, right? So maybe sometimes they misunderstand, like, oh, but what I'm paying to you is a lot, it's a lot, you know. And like because sometimes I would give them a rate that they don't expect because they think, okay, you're Brazilian, you need to pay way less, you know. But then when I send something that they were like, oh, but it's too much money from you. But it's kind of different, man. I mean, look, the average salary here in Brazil, like in dollars, is about $400. Uh, you know, if
A
you
month. Yeah.
US dollars,
Yep. Yep.
yeah, monthly, right? But here's the thing: the electronics. I feel like when I go to Amazon and see how much they cost in US dollars, if I want to make money in my currency and then convert, it's like, dude, it's like
Yeah.
over
Yeah. You have
double.
to work
It's like
double,
over.
triple, sometimes quadruple. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because yeah, it's like yeah, exactly. Because look, let me go. If let's go with the basis of a minimum wage, right? A minimum
Hmm.
wage here is about $200 per month, working like 8 hours a day. Okay,
Yeah, it's the same here.
if
Yep.
if yeah. So what happens if you want to buy the I don't know, the latest iPhone, and then you want to see how many months you have to work? It's like over a year just working and not spending it, you know. So it's like, even though it looks like more money, I also need much more money to buy like things that I work on, you know. If I want to buy a computer, I need to pay so much more, you know. So
Yep.
it's different, right?
It is different. I know exactly where you're coming from. So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So how do you price yourself with the international market, even though they know that you're coming in from a currency that has suffered inflation or is weaker than the local currency? How do you
Yeah.
work that? How do you work that relationship when you're quoting these clients?
Yeah, so I would quote basically what I like. If I charge very fairly, very well, somebody here in Brazil, that's what I do. But I'm sure there's some people that disagree. Like there's a lot of movement here in Brazil just saying like, guys, like don't charge less just because it looks like a lot of money, right? uh Myself, I charge as much as I charge someone from Brazil, but I charge like a very fair rate. Like if a good client paying a good amount in Brazil, that's how much I charge in American dollars, you know. But yeah, the goal of the my some of my friends that are very good artists is they just do it the North American rate, you know,
Yes, the way it should be, I
because
think.
yeah, that's very true. I should also do that, but at the moment, that's how I think. How much in Brazil I would, uh, a good client that pays fair, how much would it be? You know, but honestly, what we all should be doing, just because imagine, like, for them there's not much difference, right? Like there's great artists all over the world, and like why should it be different, right? But
That's true. Like,
yeah, sometimes it is.
it's a tricky pill to swallow because there's a large argument between fair trade and free trade. So the argument with fair
Mm,
trade concerning globalization is that an industry with an international advantage should not have a competitive rate with international rates to outcompete the local
mm,
industry. But at the same time, if an international rate is competing with another international client that's underbidding their local industry, that also causes an issue. So it's a really hard balance because if a local currency, a person who's working, for example, I'm working for a client in Los Angeles and they're paying me dollars per hour. That's 10 times more my local person who's working in a publicity agency here in the city. I'm outcompeting my local person. But if I undercut my rates while working for international current industry, the person who's working in Los Angeles loses his job because now I have his job by charging less. So it's kind of like the chicken before the egg. Which one's better? How do we work it? Kind of an interesting one to do.
yeah, I see people people get really mad about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't find it easy to get some like really good clients, like US rate. I also gotta learn a lot about that. I'm really not the best person to charge good rates. I need to learn a lot about this.
You are beginning. That's
Yeah,
good. That's fine. I was terrible at it too, and sometimes I still am. But now I'm actually think twice
yeah,
when I start to quote a project because this requires a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
yeah.
I'm worth the amount of work that I do. We should be
I'm
able to
trying to
charge
change
in.
that.
Yeah, yeah. I know. It took me
Yeah, we
years. I know.
should.
That's why I said at the beginning of the show, at the beginning of the quarantine, my life changed when somebody said, you should be earning this much per day. And that changed my mind. That because that was
Yeah,
what I was
um,
earning per month. So
they yeah. Are you saying that people around you were like, dude, are you seriously only doing this?
yeah, you're only charging
And then
that.
they
You're
should.
so cheap. Why are you
Yeah,
undercutting yourself? Why are you hurting yourself?
dude. Dude, I'm right at this moment when people around me don't believe that I only charge this. They're
Yeah.
like, "What?"
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and they're saying like, "Dude, you gotta, value yourself," you know.
And it's a tricky thing.
And, and at the end of the day, I think that if I can charge like a US rate and just do a good job, like mostly I'm helping them. You know, it's hard finding competent people, and like if you're like not giving your clients a hard time and you're solving their problems, like there's no reason why you shouldn't like be making good money out of it, you know.
I
I
agree.
myself am trying to change that at the moment. I just uh my situation is, I actually last year I quit the studio I was working with because I was trying to do some solo projects, and uh I did some things that was the like it wasn't very effective in money making, some mistakes. you know I just I met a client on e-commerce, right? Which, by the way, I love him, and I still love him. It's just a business partner, and when he learned how much I was making, he told me like, why don't you start working with me, right? Because you're only making, and then I told how much my studio wage was, which was like 700 $800 US dollars a month, and he just couldn't believe it, right? Because I would tell him uh my work hours, and he was like, wait, you work 10 hours a day and overtime and you make like $800? Like, okay, why don't you go work with me? Like, uh go ahead and let's open some e-commerce stores. Do you see how I'm doing well and everything? And I think you're right. I'm just gonna go by myself and work with you. And then I did that. So I quit my studio to try to have my own e-commerce business. The deal was he had the money. He would uh, do all the um, do all the investments, and I would get a very small percentage of the whole profit. And in exchange, I would basically make content for him. And I did that for like 2 years. And I gave him a lot of content, but it kind of didn't work out as I expected. The things didn't. And I really regret doing this. If I went back to my past and tell myself like what you should do, I would say it's okay to do your own thing, but stick to what you love, right? Do 3D. If you want to have a brand, do a brand that is related to what you like, because it just really didn't work out for me. And I just stopped working like this with him, and then I'm like, okay, what do I do now? Do I actually look for freelance opportunity right now? And I'm kind of but I just wanna I just wanna like I just wanna take this opportunity where I'm changing what I'm doing and just go back to the reality of everyday studio work. I just miss that, you know. I'm not very excited about uh doing freelance at home. I
I
miss talking to
understand.
people.
I understand.
Yeah.
I had to
So this is
change.
where
I
I am.
started going crazy as well. Let me hop onto that. When I was doing freelancing before quarantine, by then I was hitting maybe 4 or 5 years at home. I was already living in the quarantine before it hit, and
Yeah.
I had
Yes.
to start like developing a double personality where I was my own manager in a fake studio, pretending I was my own worker person who's doing the work for an actual agency or something. Because I was going crazy just trying to understand what I was supposed to do, how I'm supposed to do it, and then I searched for Discord just in the nick of time to kind of find that online community of people that would started working in what I do. And fortunately, thanks to people like Arundel and even Scott and Pers and Curtis Holt even and many others, I could find that community.
Yeah. It sounds like it saved you, bro.
Oh, it helped me a lot for sure. So I understand that. But yeah, there's
Yeah.
need more experience working in a studio. We'll see how that happens. Well,
Yeah.
I have to start tying up this conversation. I've really
Yeah.
enjoyed it, and I understand where you're coming from. I understand the frustrations, I understand the journey, and you've come a very long way for the 4 years that you've been doing, and you've got a bright path
Oh,
ahead of you.
thank you.
Your attention to rendering, your attention to detail, your dynamics with the jobs and the roles that you do, your ability to work with others, your composition and your sense of expression and your honesty is a powerful thing, and your social skills is a powerful thing too. I'm rooting for you, and I know that working in these countries, yes, it may sound like you're going to get a ton of clients from overseas with good amounts of currency exchange, but there's always a challenge and there's always a concept of globalization that you have to confront. But you've got it. I'm rooting for you, and I really appreciate your time. I would like to invite you to an art review for the next 10 minutes if you have that time, but if not, I guess we can call it a
Of
day.
course, I would love to. Just let me thank you. Yeah, and you guys will help me a lot because I just come to know this community, and I'm just loving being here. It's just really good talking to people. I really miss that. And when you say you learned about Discord and you just love start talking to people there, this is what I'm feeling right now, and I'm really excited. I'm really excited to have learned of those communities. Your channel, people around you, they seem really nice and very welcoming, and this will help me a lot. Thank you.
All right. So I got some comments before this piece
Perfect.
by this is Mr. Crusader. No, sorry, White Rooster Productions. He's a regular person who posts here. He does quite amazing sci-fi. Killin Smalls has mentioned that sometimes you gotta change prices depending if it's local or international, and that giving quotes gives him anxiety. Me too. He's mentioned that companies will often have an account manager to communicate with clients on behalf of artists. So the artist has no responsibility to give out prices. Also, not having to do the client communication saves a lot of time. So it is an issue that when it comes to pricing for international clients for larger groups of companies, a difficult thing that sometimes you have no control of. It's an interesting problem. And
Yeah, I apologize that I didn't read the comments. I didn't know it was there. Oh, I
that's
see a
okay.
lot of them. Yes.
That's good. And also, I'm Kind of Drunk mentions that when you have to be a one man army, you have to be your commercial, financial, and run your own publicity and ads and work at the same time. Yes, that's the difficulty of freelancing. Killen also mentions if you have the client flow, like if you have a flow of clients, it's worth bringing someone in to handle the clients, have like a manager or a representative. This is when you start to become a business. This is really interesting. So the first piece that we have today is by White Rooster Productions. He has made this sci-fi piece here, and I quite like it.
Looks amazing. You have a lot of detail right there.
Yeah, it's incredible. I'll have to ask him how he did this if he's here for later. And let's see who else is in the chat. We can invite them on. Oh, he's not here today. Another piece is done by Mr. Crusader. Let me just open that up. So Mr. Crusader has made this piece. So I would like to, since you've worked with lighting and rendering, what kind of advice do you have for Mr. Crusader concerning this piece?
All right. First of all, just let me say I don't find myself to be a very artistically inclined person. So, what I would say, yeah, that's unfortunate, but that's what I feel like. So, I'll do the best that I can. Okay. The first thing I would say, I love the materials. They're very well set up and very realistic, and I appreciate that because you see a lot of artwork that people struggle with adjusting the PBR materials to look good, and it looks great. What I would say is that this does not focus your attention in what you should be focusing your attention on, right? And I think you figured that as well. Yes. Because, yeah, so when you're doing some artwork, I think you need to be very clear with your intentions, meaning you need to uh it's like you have a script, right? First, I want the person to look at this, then at this, and then at this, right? And this fails uh, to show the centerpiece, right?
Yeah,
Because
that's
like my
unfortunate.
brain goes to the sides, but I think I should be able to look at what is in there, right?
Which is
And I
interesting
can
because it's a
actually
radio,
miss
right?
I can actually miss it if I'm not paying attention, and I'm sure like it isn't his intention, right?
Correct. So that's a good tip. Yeah. I like that concept of
Yeah,
lighting your story or lighting your scene as if it was a story. First look here, then look here, and then look here. That's really interesting. I like it. So this is done, this
yeah,
piece
it's
here,
readability, right?
it is quite an
Sorry.
ability. This piece here is done by Sam Krug. He's been working with instances and cycles and he's been testing how to do landscapes. Mountains do look pretty good.
Is this the same person on the last Q&A that was making the mountains where you talk about the fog?
Actually, yeah, we already had a look at this piece.
Oh yeah, well, I sorry, yeah, it looks much better than the last time I saw it.
Yeah, it
It
has
looks,
improved.
yeah, it improved a lot.
And this next piece here is done by Mr. Mohammed Emin. He has showcased a number of different pieces and he created a 2.5 minute continual shot of a piece.
Wow, 2.5 minutes. That's crazy. I love when people are brave enough to do animations. I find it so hard.
Animation's another level. And also we got a new
Yeah,
user here, Shinzo. Shinzo has he created this piece by whoops, let me just bring it out. So it was his first piece that he created in the community, and he was using B for artists. So let's just play that again.
I,
So he kind of got his feet wet, starting to work on this piece, and I find that quite nice. So, which actually
I
is
saw this one.
yeah, good.
Sorry,
Which
it was very satisfying, very very satisfying to watch.
that's true. So actually that leads me, and I know time is ticking and I don't want to keep the audience too much longer, but within next week I'm working on creating another release of B for Artists. So if you haven't noticed before, B for Artists is a fork of Blender with an interface that's slightly different, with some improvements like a toolbar at the top that you can customize to however you want. Yeah, overlay toggles that you can customize to however you want. Tool shelf with all the operators that you want with 3 columns or text. So if you want to mirror something, you can click on the mirror and it will quickly mirror it, or set the origin without using a pie menu, without even using a keyboard. Use one hand. And we also add like quick node editor changes. And if I create a cube and a material, I can have the node shelf here on the right and add any type of node whatever I want with icons and a number of other little things. So there's a new release coming out next week. And because Blender has created a new release with Blender 3.5.1 with a number of bug fixes, including 50 bug fixes and a couple other small minor details. So stay tuned for next week when I do this next release. I still have to do a lot of work to get it going. And I guess we have a couple of other pieces as well, but if you'd like to see your art showcased next week, feel free to push it. So the 2D guy also pushed one with the last stand, which I thought was really cool. And also Mohammed Emin made another animation which was actually really good. So I like that the animation is coming in, and this came in earlier this morning. We made this piece and it's very cool as well.
That
So
looks very good.
I liked it too. So Rodrigo, I want to say thank you again for your time today. And hopefully
Thank you.
you can be more a part of this community. If you have any questions or you just want to hang out and work, let's just hang out here. And I'll see you all same time, same place next week. And if you like this content, I'm going to do a quick little plug as well. If you like this content, please like, please subscribe, please share the event. And also, if you do want to support the work that I do with B for Artists or with this Q&A or any other future content, don't forget to support me on Ko-Fi or Patreon. And that's going to be my last note. And I wish you all
All
an
right,
excellent
thank
weekend.
you.
And thanks again, Rodrigo.
Thank you. I don't know how to.
I'll finish the event here.
Thank you.
See you later.
Appreciate it. Bye, guys.
Bye bye.